Hi, I'm Tessa Rose Jackson. I'm a film and media composer and I release art and music under the name Mijn. How I start a project depends on like what it is. Is it for me, if it's a someone track, if I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit in the studio and write a new song for me. It really kind of depends, because sometimes I haven't even made that decision. Sometimes I'm just sitting on the couch and like, ooh. And then the nice thing is that we're in my studio, but this is my house, so I can always come in here. And I draw inspiration from everything. Obviously, I'm a massive film nerd and I love films, and it can be a scene from a film that just triggers something in me. So for example, like I've written like 4 or 5 tracks for the Save Me scene, the Amy Mann Save Me scene in Magnolia. I've written like so many songs to that, because what I do sometimes is I come into the studio and I pull up a scene on my computer and I just play to that. And for some reason when I'm doing that, it flows more naturally. I guess because I'm in my head less. I'm an overthinker, and I can wrap myself in circles too much sometimes. But when I'm watching somebody else or I'm watching a story, it feels like I can kind of turn the inner critic off for a bit, and all I'm doing is translating how that makes me feel, or how that person might be feeling, or it always does end up how it makes me feel. And more original ideas tend to come out, which is fun.
It's fun. That is very visual.
Yes, I am a very visual person, and I think maybe that's completely mental, but I feel like you can hear that in my music, that I am very visual. I do always see a scene when I write, or some kind of palette. Yes. Well, I think that's funny. I do always describe myself as a storyteller, because yes, I am a musician, but I work on commission or I work for my own stuff, but I'm also an artist, graphic artist, and I make animation, so it's very broad. And actually the one thing that ties everything together is I just love storytelling. When I was a kid, I used to write stories. I thought I was going to be a writer. My mum thought I was going to be a writer. She was obsessed with the idea that I was going to be a writer. Sorry, Mum. And hence the name. She actually called me Tessa Rose Jackson, because she was like, that's a good writer's name. It's really weird. But so this is something that I love, and I notice that I gravitate towards other storytellers, natural storytellers. And the music videos that for my project Someone are almost always a collaboration with my favorite director, who's called David Spearing. And he's like me. He just sees stories everywhere. And sometimes, for example, for the video for Chain Reaction, it was an idea that I had, and I wanted to translate that into a video. So I kind of directed that, and he just sort of helped and was DOP and did everything. I mean, he basically directed it, but I was allowed to hold the reins. But a lot of the time I actually really like it to bounce my music off him and see what kind of interpretations he throws back at me. Because there's one thing that I love about actually music and art, is that there's so many different interpretations, and the way the story that sparks in your mind when you listen to a song is not necessarily the story that sparks in somebody else's, but the core could be the same, the core theme or subject. And that's actually my favorite thing about collaboration, is that you can see someone else's brain like a reflection of what you did, and that, I don't know, it makes it all feel so much more alive and so much more rich. I think everybody that has like that split of working on commission and having your own artist project sees it. It's like, I mean, it's all got to do with each other. It's all woven together. But when you are working for somebody else, you are facilitating. It's not your story. You can infuse your story into it, but at the end of the line, you're there to bring to life somebody else's vision. And the nice thing is that can be very inspiring, because you can see someone's vision come to life, and it can be like, oh yes. And then when I'm working as someone, it's my story and it's my vision and the tables are turned. And I'm working together with other people like David Spearing, who is facilitating my vision. And it's like a sort of yin-yang situation. Is like being on one side of the table and then on the other side. And I don't know, that constantly refreshes also your vision, and it keeps your ego in check, because it's not always about you. Sometimes it's very much not about you. And I like that, actually, because I don't like people with overinflated egos, and I think it gets in the way of creativity. But so when I work as someone, I try and see no boundaries. And in collaborating with other people, they will show me boundaries, or they will suggest maybe. But for myself, I went through a very intense writer's block period. It was horrible. It was 2 years in which I could write for other people, so that yin or whatever it is, one side of it, that was fine. But the other side, it was just confused, and I felt too many boundaries, too many restrictions and opinions and stuff. And the only way I got out of it was basically just going, no boundaries. Whatever I want to do. I don't care if anybody likes it, hates it. Let's just do it and see what happens. And that really helped, because I describe like creativity, when I teach, I describe it like a sort of rusty tap. Sometimes if it's closed, it's really hard to open it again. But you have to believe that like the water is there. Sometimes you have to really put pressure on it and really keep going. But then once it's open and it will stay open. Once I opened it, I was like, okay, so this is what works for me. No rules, fine. People that like what I do, I hope that they'll like it because they'll recognize a certain creative richness to it, and maybe unpredictability to it. And I hope they're along for the ride. But I'm never gonna change what I do or hone it to match a certain audience, because I don't really believe that works. So yeah, full creative freedom and bringing to life somebody else's vision. That's kind of the two difference.
I want to know, out of curiosity, because I love the name Someone.
Yes.
So how did it come up?
Actually, this was a name that a very dear friend of mine thought up, because this was during this creative block period, and I'd released music under my own name, under Tessa Rose Jackson, which had done really well in Holland, and we'd done the whole touring and stuff. But I was only like 19, 20 or 21 maybe, when it came out. And in that period of your life, you're still growing, you're changing so quickly. And I noticed that Holland is also quite a small country. And there was a certain expectation, or I had accidentally made a kind of image or a kind of brand almost, which I'd never meant to do. And people just very much expected me to keep doing that. But I had already musically progressed a lot, and my horizons were broadening, and I wanted to make other stuff, and I didn't feel that freedom to be able to do that. And that was really confusing as well, because I felt like, oh, but I've done something successful. Now all I have to do is do that again. But why don't I want to do that? Or even if I wanted to, why am I not able to do that? Why am I not able to repeat myself for some kind of success? And I just really realized, like, oh, I really don't like that. I really don't like just doing something because somebody says that it's successful. I want to always do stuff because I believe in it and because I think it's creatively valid. But I didn't know what that was. I was just utterly confused. So I just felt like I needed a new name. Also because I noticed that my name, it sparked a lot of expectation. Very female name. Flower. There's a little flower in there, so they always thought it was something cute. Jackson's is a difficult name because people always thought it was either soul or country. And I was like, but I haven't even played you any of my music, and you've already decided what I am. And also from a feminist point of view, I really liked the idea of having a name that that you don't know whether it's a boy or a girl or anything in between, or I don't know. It's nothing. It could even be 2 people. It could be 3 people. And exactly that creative freedom that I was talking about when it comes to creating the art, that is the same in that name, someone. It's very much, someone can be whatever at that point in time it needs to be. So, you know, if it ends up being a collaboration, I don't have to change the name. It can still be someone, as long as the output and the art, what's coming out of it, feels cohesive with the rest and feels like it's the same story, then it doesn't matter who's making it.
Brilliant. Great name.
Thank you. The opinions are very, very differing on that.
I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
Music by someone.
Yes, I know.
It's great.
Someone's website.com.
Someone is singing.
Yes, exactly. I love it. It's difficult. I mean, every recording and every production has a moment of that, because there's this sort of creative wave that I really, really honestly believe in, is that when you start anything, you're like, oh, this is cool, and then you're like, oh, this is amazing, and then, oh, this is the best thing ever, and then you get over this little thing, whatever that is, and then you're like, oh, this kind of sucks, and then you're like, oh, this is shit, oh, and by the way, everything I've ever made is shit. That's the low point. And I think that the biggest challenge in every creative endeavor is to keep going after that bit, because if you stay there, you flatline. You know, if you stop, that's a flatline, because you're never gonna. That's it, rock bottom. And the challenge every time is to keep going and to keep believing, being like, okay, no, never mind. And sometimes you can go back up and you're like, oh, actually, this is kind of cool. Oh, actually, this is amazing. This is really interesting. I've made something beautiful. And not every project is destined to do that. Some of them will flatline, but you don't know if you don't keep going. And so it's a kind of shit answer because there's not a specific example, but I do believe that every single time you do anything that is honest and real, you're going to doubt yourself. You're going to think, oh, maybe this one's real bad. And the challenge and the biggest win is to overcome that and keep going.
And it's very dangerous if you don't doubt yourself. As an artist, it's very dangerous too.
And it's boring. And it's boring because people that don't doubt themselves don't challenge themselves. Yeah. And I think in challenging yourself, that's where the real stuff comes out.
Can you show us something?
Yes, I can. So this is Shapeshifter, the last track of the Shapeshifter album. And this was a real challenge because this is a really old song. It's 8 years old. And it was lying on the shelf, doing nothing for ages. And for this album that I was working on, for the first time, I felt like, oh, I think I found a home for that song. Because all the other songs were new. And but that was a real challenge because I had this sort of original demo that had a certain vibe to it that I'd never quite cracked the nut of it. Uh-huh. And I had to try and do that for this one. And that was really, really, really fun. And the fun thing is that in the chorus, there's this group chorus that all these voices sing together. And I kept the recording of my voice from 8 years ago and doubled it with my voice now. So it's me singing in unison with my 21-year-old self, stuck in the middle of a writer's block. And there's nobody that knows that, and nobody can hear it, but I do. I know it, and I love that. I love that little nugget.
It's like several generations of you in the same track.
Exactly, and that's why recording is so amazing, because it's just this sort of little moment in time that you capture. And it kind of feels like those things of, when you write a letter to your older self or a question, it kind of feels like that. A little bit of time travel. Nice. But yeah, this recording is very special to me. One of the things is the main instrument in it. I'll play you there.
Lay down your weapons at 6s and 7s, we draw the line. If it's war that you came for, there's many a place for your camera crimes. Say it out loud, say it out loud, no doubt.
just a little, that instrument, that main instrument. Originally, this was a demo with a guitar. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like it had anything special to it. It felt a bit too, I don't know, too mellow or something. And I'd been watching American Beauty, which has that incredible, I think it's marimba score. And then, like a proper nerd, I was working with my boyfriend and we tried to do it on marimba and it just sounded really pretentious and shit. And then we were playing around, we're like, okay, but the whole track is built on this sort of repetitive pattern, because the song is about being stuck in a pattern. Like, you know, in social situations, we sometimes dig ourselves into these patterns that sometimes are great and sometimes are not. And it's really hard to get out of that and to rebuild that pattern. So that main instrument was really important. And this, we finally cracked the nut of it. This is a prepared piano. So it's a piano in which we duct taped a few strings. So we opened up the front of it. You see all the strings running in a piano. And we put duct tape on a few of them so it sort of mutes the tone of it.
More dry.
Yes. So, and it has that sort of marimba
Dreamy
feel to it. Yeah. And it has the hammer feel of the marimba, but at the same time, it's not a marimba. And I love that. I love sounds that it's not quite clear what they are, or it's sort of like, it's a sort of little shadow world you can inhabit. So yeah, I love that element of this track.
Amazing.
Yes. I think everybody that has lived in two places a long time maybe recognizes that there are sort of two sides to my character now. There's a more Dutch side and there's a more English side, and I need them both. When I'm in Holland for too long, I notice that I start to miss a sort of crazy, chaotic side to me that feels more English. And, you know, because Holland is very structured and very well organized, which is great and it's good for like anti-anxiety shit. But I feel like, oh, I miss that mad side to me. So then when I go to the UK, I really feel like I refuel that side. And obviously I can see my friends and my family there. And I love playing shows in the UK. I love how the live scene is there. It's very vibrant and it's very artist oriented. So there's lots of like open mic nights. I love going, there's a big scene there. And I love working for like film partners and TV partners there. England is all about thinking out of the box, outside the box, and I really like that. But Amsterdam is like my little safe haven. I've got my house here and I've got my cat. A big portion of my friends and my family are here. That's like my safe space, and London is the wild, wild west.